citizens affected by criminal investment fraud. SB 157 would simply conform California law to federal law and provide a similar measure of modest relief to innocent victims by refunding at least some of the taxes dutifully but erroneously paid to the state. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. In support of the bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Diane Stanton with the State Treasurer, Bill Lockyer. He's sorry he can't be here today himself, but he is a strong supporter of this bill. Again, this is criminal behavior, and we have California taxpayers who have paid taxes on criminal behavior. And while there is a balance and there is a revenue loss potentially to the state, it's ill-gotten gains, and we would appreciate your support.
All right, thank you. Witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? All right, seeing none, committee members, questions or comments? Senator Huff.
This is an interesting issue, something I certainly hadn't contemplated before, but my understanding is it would just bring California to compliance with federal law, which has already recognized that if you have criminal activity and there's profits that are generated on paper, clearly they're not real profits because it was all built as a scam in the first place and unsupportable. So I can appreciate that the state wants to get our money in a timely manner. Even we can't tell the difference between paper profits or real profits at the time. And clearly we have a law-abiding citizen paid his taxes. But then when this whole thing collapses, it seems irresponsible and mean-spirited, frankly, if we as a state hang on to the money as if that was a legitimate purpose. I think that this whole Ponzi scheme that it collapsed a lot of things in our economy, but I certainly don't think it should be at the expense of our law-abiding citizens. So I think it's a good bill, and I'd be happy to make a motion to support it.
All right, Senator Huff. Is there any comment by the committee? Senator Liu?
Yes, I want to concur with Senator Huff. I, too, have had folks in my district who have been burned by Mr. Madoff, and they have come to me to ask for some kind of help. And I think we brought this issue before the chair last year, and not in a formal way, but just a conversation, and without a resolution. So for me, it is just a compliance issue, just to make sure that we are doing what the feds have already done, and I would expect that this to be over with. And this is just a single case, or will it apply to every other fraudulent investment scheme going forward? I'm not sure. Or is it just limited to the Madoff case?
No, it's
just Madoff case. So,
no, it isn't.
The bill applies
going forward to any other fraudulent investment.
Where there's a federal indictment and it meets the specified requirements of the Revenue Proclamation.
Okay. All right. Well, I feel that I can be supportive of this.
All right. Yes, Senator Hernandez.
Yeah, I have a question. With regard to the losses and the taxes paid to the state, the individual who made the statements, or I believe, I wasn't sure if I missed, the author made the statement that not all the taxes are returned, just a portion of it. Do you have any idea what that percentage would be, and what would be the cost of the state of California?
Well, would you like to respond to that?
Well, it's a function of how long the fraud you participated in the fraud. In my case, I estimate I paid about $250,000 to the state of California over the course of almost 20 years. So my 5-year return would be $60,000 approximately. So it's roughly 20% of that. But if you were only in the fraud for 5 years, you might have all of your erroneously paid taxes returned. But in my case, it's a portion.
So it would be a proportion of the amount of time that you spent in that particular investment.
And Mr. Madoff was clever enough to keep his scam running for almost 20 years. So there's a number of investors that have paid an awful lot of taxes that they shouldn't have, including myself.
Senator Hernandez, I'd like to speak to this issue. There is a civil proceeding. There is a trustee who is charged with meting out justice on this issue, financial justice as well. And the cost of this to the state of California would be in the multi-millions. It would be 30 million or so. And there are other frauds that have been perpetrated that would not fit into, where people have lost their investments. AIG, Enron, others that wouldn't be covered by this. I know how difficult this is. Frankly, it's really hard to look you in the eye and say that I don't support the bill. I do not. I don't think that there's a public benefit to this. I think the federal relief is sufficient. It's true that this is not the first time I've seen the bill as chair of Rev and Tax. I did advise that this was a great deal of money for a very specific class of taxpayers, and that I would not be supportive. And that remains my position today. Whether the committee will support that or not, I don't know. That doesn't take away from the fact that, I know that this has been very, very difficult for you and many, many taxpayers and investors in the state, and I hope that you succeed with respect to the trustee and get justice and some of your funding back. With that, there is a motion on the floor.
May I close?
And you may close.
I think it's important for us all to understand that the federal government has a large debt too. They're facing the same financial woes that California is facing, yet they found a way to do the right thing. They found a way to treat these people with respect. And I think it's a sad day in California when we allow the state to profit on the backs of victims of fraud. If we let this bill die today, we will be re-victimizing them yet a second time. Please stand with me to right this wrong. I ask for an aye vote.
All right, we have a motion, and the motion is do pass to appropriations. So please call the roll.
Wolk?
No.
Wolk, no. Huff? Huff, aye. DeSaulnier? Fuller? Fuller, aye. Hancock? Hernandez? Kehoe? Lamalfa? Aye. Lamalfa, aye. Liu? Liu, aye.
You have 4 votes. In order to get out of committee, you need 5. We will leave the roll open for the other members to vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We now have Senator Gaines, I believe. Item number 2, SB 556. Welcome.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for this opportunity to present to you Senate Bill 556. This bill would be a boon to California businesses looking to expand in this challenging economy. Specifically, this bill would exempt investments made in qualifying small businesses from California capital gains tax, as long as those investments are held for at least 5 years. This is similar to the federal tax changes affected by the Obama administration. The difference being that these investments must be made in businesses with at least 80% of their payroll right here in the state. That's not a requirement at the federal level. I'm basically trying to provide a conforming piece of legislation that would affect businesses here in the state of California based on what's already been passed through Congress and signed by the President. But we felt that we ought to have a correlation between those investments and payroll here in the state of California. We added that feature. So this is a jobs bill for California, providing incentive for investors to employ their capital, helping companies to expand in our state, and putting people to work. With 12% unemployment and the slowest economic recovery in decades, we cannot disregard any opportunity for employers hiring again in our state. And I would just urge your aye vote. I could answer any questions that you have as soon as we hear from a witness in support and any other witnesses.
Okay, in support, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Volt and the committee members. I haven't been before you before. I haven't been before any committee before, so bear with me. I have a little bit of a written statement, and then we can go from there. My name is Earl Labanino. My wife and I own Pal's Bookkeeping and Tax Service, and I'm also an enrolled agent. Our clientele is primarily small business owners and nonprofit organizations. Today, though, I'm representing not only our business and clients, but also the California Small Business Association, where I serve on the Tax and Budget Issue Committee. CSBA, as many of you probably know, is a grassroots volunteer small business organization representing over 200,000 small business owners all over the state of California. CSBA does support SB 556 because of the conformity between the federal and state tax laws is very important, not only in the cost of doing business, but also in the frustration of figuring out the differences for the business owners between the federal and the state tax code sometimes, where they have to make decisions. While the association can't prove that it'll create jobs, we can prove that it would send a message from the legislature that you understand the need to simplify rules and allow small business owners to spend their time creating jobs, not interpreting rules. So thank you for your time, and the small business asks for an aye vote on SB 556.
All right, thank you. Further witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? All right, do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Senator Key.
Senator, hi. What's the data that supports the job increases with this legislation? Yeah.
Well, the thought is that an investment.
I know, I get the thought and the theory, but is there data? How do
well,
you
we
go
can
from
we can look at
stuff?
historical evidence. You could take a look at the Reagan administration that looked at across-the-board tax cuts over a 3-year period of time, and 20 million jobs created nationally over a 7-year time frame. We are not taking the right approach to turning our economy around in the state of California, and I would argue even in the nation. If you take a look at the Keynesian philosophy that we have used that has pumped trillions of dollars into our economy, and yet we have the slowest recovery in the last 10 recessions historically in America. Now, that unemployment rate nationally is about 8.5 or 9%. California, it's 12%. And I would argue that we need to take a look at a different dynamic in terms of how are we going to create jobs in the state of California. That comes from the private sector. We've got to take, in my mind, an opportunity that's being provided at the federal level and agreed upon by President Obama, and just carrying that forward here in California, giving entrepreneurs an opportunity to put money into an investment that has to be held for a 5-year time frame, doing so this year, and that investment will create jobs, and that those jobs would create tax revenue through sales tax and income tax of jobs created. Can I guarantee it? No. We live in a dynamic, free enterprise, capitalist economy that involves risk. That money could be invested, it could be lost, and we could have no success. But I would argue, and we could take a look at the evidence over time in terms of what investments would be successful, what businesses would grow. But I think it's something that's sorely needed here in California to try to turn this economy around.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about the size of the business. $50 million in assets seems large to me, not a small business, at least not the way I think of it. And I think the legislature and the governor have in recent years enacted a number of tax benefits for businesses in California. The single sales factor, which is billions of dollars that benefits businesses. The manufacturer's income the manufacturer's equipment tax credit. Now we've expanded that to green equipment, so that's another infusion of millions of dollars. And I think there needs to be a balance here. This one seems to me to be weak in results, maybe well-intended, so I won't be able to support it today.
Okay, I guess, you can take a look, and I think there is an argument to be made in terms of, why are we providing certain incentives to particular types of businesses? You know, that's a fair question, and that's something that I think could be reviewed at and looked at. But that should not be an excuse for not looking at a way to make sure that our economy is more dynamic. Another aspect would be to take a look at the entire tax system in California and reform that system. You know, maybe we need to lower the threshold of taxation across the entire economy. And if we wanted to take a look at particular incentives, maybe those could be eliminated as we lower that burden to create, hopefully, those sorely needed jobs here in California.
Senator, before I go to Senator Huff, let me just explain that from my perspective, the federal law was quite generous, and it's in effect. It was put into effect in December 2010 for the 2011 year only. So even if this bill is supported and ends up being signed by the governor, it's not going to go into effect until after this calendar year is completed. So the benefit of conformity is not going to be there for this year only. And we also have on the books state law that largely mirrors the federal law, with the exception of the stock exclusion. It allows, as it says, is our analysis, taxpayers can exclude the capital gain up to the lesser of 10 times the stock's basis or $10 million issued by any corporation with total assets of $50 million or less, 80% of its payroll in California, 80% of its assets in the active conduct of one or more qualified trades or businesses. I think the federal exclusion is for 1 year only, and I don't see the reason to expand ours at this point, given the kind of economy we have. So, Senator Huff, I'm sure you have a different perspective, but that's mine.
Okay.
Please,
well, can I respond to that just briefly?
Why don't we let Senator Huff?
All right.
And you can do that.
Great.
Certainly.
Setting a fair tax law that generates the revenues we want is probably one of the most complicated things we do here. And just to exaggerate for the point, to make a point, if we had zero tax, we wouldn't be able to fund government. If we had 100% tax, we wouldn't have anybody left. And so somewhere in between is the reality, but it's some kind of soup that we tinker around with the ingredients. And so the question of Senator Keogh is a good one. You know, is there any data that supports that? Something we had in our report was 2007, the Heritage Foundation, prior to a capital gains tax cut, Congressional Budget Office projected capital gains revenues would grow by 36%. They enacted a 5% cut, and it actually doubled. Revenues came in, instead of the projected amount of 68, at $103 billion. You know, that's one set of data. There was also a study by the Harvard economists, I love to, you know, try it out every now and then, that says when you're coming out of a recession, tax cuts work better to sustain than tax increases. You know, there's different data out there. I wish we could get our arms around it better. But these kinds of things, when it's not clear-cut, you do have some data that suggests that it does help. I think we ought to err on the side of helping the businesses. You know, in spite of everything we're doing right now, the economy is turning around. We certainly don't want to put our foot on the throat of recovery and hold it down. And I don't know what that magic amount is, but I am going to support this today and be pleased to move it when it's appropriate.
All right. Further questions? All right. There is a motion, and it's to pass, I believe, to appropriations. Would you like to close?
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity to present this legislation. I think it is something that's critical, something that is innovative, creative, and it's conforming. And we had success on a bipartisan basis in Congress with the President. And why wouldn't we incorporate the same idea for California that has an unemployment rate that's roughly 50% higher than the national average? So I would ask for your support, an opportunity for entrepreneurs to put money at risk to create much needed jobs and turn this economy around. Ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
All right. The motion is do pass to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Wolf?
No.
Wolf, no. Huff? Huff, aye. DeSaulnier? DeSaulnier, no. Fuller? Fuller, aye. Hancock? No. Hancock, no. Hernandez? No. Hernandez, no. Kehoe? No. Kehoe, no. Lamalfa? Lamalfa, aye. Liu? Liu, no.
You have 3 votes. Is the committee entirely here? Yeah. That bill fails.
Okay.
Reconsideration granted.
Yeah, I'd like to ask for reconsideration. Sure. Great. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Assemblymember Swanson, AB 184. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I wore a red tie. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity. This bill is I'm reintroducing AB 1755 from last year, which received some bipartisan support in both houses last year. AB 184 this year simply adds seismic upgrades to the list of contractual assessments, which currently include water efficiency improvements and renewable energy generating devices. This bill will not allow property owners to participate if it would result in a total annual property assessment on the property to exceed 5% of the market value of the property. This was an amendment that we accepted as in the Senate to this bill last year, which actually made it a better bill. We've all seen the damage that earthquakes have done to communities in California, and the extent of this damage of earthquakes has been known to us recently. Not only do earthquakes physically damage homes, but they damage families and cause them to have to relocate. And so this bill is very necessary. Seismic upgrades are very expensive, and local communities should have the ability to help homeowners finance those very important upgrades. I'll have my witness self-introduce.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Chairperson Woke and committee members, my name is Sue Piper, and I'm here today representing Mayor Jean Quan of the City of Oakland, who wishes she could be here because this is a subject that she has been passionate about for the last 20 years. I want to thank Assemblymember Swanson for his leadership on AB 184. The City of Oakland is the sponsor for this bill, as seismic safety is one of our top priorities. We know that habitable housing is critical for individuals and communities to recover quickly following a major earthquake. Recent events in Japan, Haiti, New Zealand, and Chile demonstrate the potential of large-scale displacement of people when housing is destroyed during large earthquakes. The Association of Bay Area Governments has stated that in a major earthquake on the Hayward Fault, 26,000 of the 163,000 housing units in Oakland will become uninhabitable, and 2/3 of that is in affordable multifamily apartments, which are soft story. We also know that seismic retrofitting can save lives and livelihoods because it increases the ability of communities to withstand a major earthquake. Spending money now to retrofit is far less costly than having to clear away and dispose of rubble and build from scratch after a disaster. But the cost of retrofitting a home is a major barrier to doing what we know works. We need to remove all possible barriers, and the sooner the better, because it is not a matter of if, but when the next big earthquake occurs. Assembly Bill 184 will make seismic retrofits easier to achieve and more affordable, which is a major concern to a large urban center like Oakland with many working-class families. This bill will not cost the state any money, but it will give cities and their residents the opportunity to be proactive and prepare for post-disaster recovery now when it's less expensive and more effective before the next big one hits. So I thank you for your time and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. In support of the bill.
Christopher Carlisle with California Association of Realtors in support of the bill. As just noted, this measure will allow homeowners to finance the installation of these needed seismic strengthening improvements at low interest rates. These upfront installation costs can often deter property owners from making these improvements, and as a result, we ask for your aye vote.
All right. Further witnesses in support of the bill? Witnesses in opposition? All right. Comments or questions from the committee? Bill is moved by Senator Hancock.
It's a very good bill, adds to the toolbox for cities to use for these kinds of retrofits.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lamont, for questions?
Thank you. My Couple questions on this is, do we expect that these retrofits would actually make one of these structures habitable through the earthquake, or is it more of a measure just to keep them from collapsing so badly that occupants inside would be at greater risk than, say, a structure that would hold up longer before you could evacuate a building? Is it seen as really saying no drop-off in habitability of a building? Yeah. Or there's still going to be an interim time required for likely repairs?
Yeah, actually engineering improves every year, but the main goal here is to make sure we save lives. That in fact, different what we know now and what we learn every year after there's a major quake, the engineering designs and retrofitting strategies have improved quite a bit. And so we think that it will first of all save lives and give families a chance to locate and secure, either out of the home or away from danger. And so that's the principal objective. And every year, our engineering techniques get better and better, but it's just very costly. So this in a very low interest way will allow for this retrofitting to take place. And our principal objective is to save lives.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Is this is then a statewide policy, not just a regional one for the
right? It adds retrofitting to as an option for local communities to be able to offer this. It's up to the local community to do it, no expense to the state, and it's a financing mechanism that allows them to do it.
So yeah, your basic goal here is to find. There's no grants involved. There's no gift of public funds here in these. You could finance with a private source, or you could finance with the city or local government entity here. You're barely trying to achieve a lower interest rate through the city or the local entity that's doing it.
And I'll let Sue Piper explain how Oakland thinks about it.
Well, one other thing is that while the standards are to save lives, retrofitted homes take less, it's less expensive to fix them up after the disaster because the damage is that much less. So it also allows people to recover much more quickly rather than having to destroy, remove a house that's in such bad shape that you have to start from scratch. From Oakland's perspective, we've been working on this for a very long time, and it's sort of like a jigsaw puzzle. There are lots of little pieces that you have to have in place to actually, have people retrofit. This is a very key piece of that, and our goal is to find funding from other sources to put together that pot of money, but we need to have the legislation in order to do that.
Okay, so where will the what will the net cost to the cities be? Because if you're offering a lower below market interest rate, then there is a cost of that money as you make the loan. So how will cities afford to come in under market prices for making these loans? Because I guess there'll be a net cost to the cities for doing this.
Well, most of the representatives have said that it's really preventative. It's a major preventative measure because of the large costs it costs cities. And Oakland has gone through major earthquakes before, and it's cost cities and taxpayers a lot of money. So this is preventative. So I think you have to look at the costs from that perspective. And then also, it's not going to happen unless homeowners have the ability for low-cost financing mechanism to be able to do this. And so that's why the cities are willing to use this new assessment mechanism to be able to make it more affordable for homeowners.
So it's a voluntary assessment, so I as a homeowner could approach the city and say, I would like to be assessed. Do I set my own rate, or do they have a prescribed rate that based on, say, the value of my home that I would have to pay under the voluntary program to be?
There'll be a transparent program, yes, very transparent. Up front, everyone will know what the costs are. And what we're saying...
what's the rate, though? I mean, how is the rate determined? By my ability to afford it, or by the value of my home, some kind of structure there?
Well, last year when the bill came to the Senate, we added the limitation that it couldn't exceed the 5% of the assessed value of the home. that was a protection so that this would not end up being something that people could not afford, and it would be just costly. That was the reason that
5% of the assessed value per year would be the rate. No more than that.
No. Yeah, right. It can't be more than that. Yes.
Okay. Lastly, is it likely that there'll be people that want to voluntarily pay into this to be part of the fund, and they may not draw down upon it, they may not use it, or do you anticipate if a person volunteers to be part of this that they're immediately going to want that benefit? Because I'm wondering who all the payers are going to be there. When you have an assessed property tax, everybody's paying into a fund that maybe not everybody's using from. So you probably don't anticipate that there's going to be people that voluntarily pay into it that are not drawing down upon it.
No, I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you for your questions, Senator.
Further questions from the committee? All right, we do have a motion which is to pass, and would you like to close, Assemblyman?
Well, thank you. I think this is a public safety measure, and I think we know what the damage has been caused by earthquakes in the past, and this is a way for us to save lives and limit damage, and in the long run save taxpayers a lot of money.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Huff. Huff, aye. DeSaulnier.
Aye.
DeSaulnier, aye. Fuller. Hancock. Hancock, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa. Liu. Liu, aye.
That bill has 7 votes. It is out, and
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
All right, let's go through. We have one other bill that remains on call. SB 157, Senator Anderson, the fraudulent investments of Madoff and others. So it's 4-1. Please call those who haven't voted.
DeSaulnier.
Chair voting no, Vice Chair voting aye.
DeSaulnier, no. Hancock. Hernandez. Kehoe.
The vote is 4-2. That bill fails. We are. I didn't hear you. I thought you abstained. You voted no. Oh, well, in that case, please.
Hancock. Hancock, no.
All right. The vote is 4-3. That bill fails. Reconsideration granted. I believe that is it. We are adjourned.